Hey everybody, welcome to Fantasy R&R. This is your host Ryan.
And I'm Rob.
And this is week 5 of Fantasy Football 2022.
This is Fantasy with Rob and Ryan, Fantasy R&R.
As usual, let's get kicked off with Thursday Night Football.
Commanders at Bears.
This one's going to be a terrible game, but hey, something good has got to come of it. I think it potentially could be Justin Fields. I know we were just crapping on this guy just last week, but the Bears allowed him to throw last week, and he looked pretty dang good. Let's see if the Bears, who have nothing to lose, I know we're only talking about week 5 here, but throw the damn ball. Let's see what Justin Fields can do, because he's got legs too. He can scramble and extend plays. Let's see if this is the game that Justin Fields breaks out.
Deontay Brown is going to be an interesting play for some people this week. Last week, we saw him get 105 yards on just 2 catches and 4 targets. Both of those catches went for touchdowns. This guy's an absolute speedster and deep threat. 25.5 fantasy points in our half PPR league. With Jahan Dotson ruled out and Logan Thomas just ruled out as a few minutes ago for tonight's game, Deontay Brown might actually be a sneaky DFS or flex play in one of your leagues. I think this is somebody, that probably went under the radar last year as a rookie. With Carson Wentz being a little banged up, it's hard to tell what's going to happen, but against the Bears, you can probably bet that Deontay Brown is at least going to see 5 targets tonight.
49ers at Falcons.
Let's go Brandon Ayuk. His game's got to be coming. It could be just this game against a very weak defense here. Brandon Ayuk has to get going. Jimmy G is, as you know, the Italian sedan, and you never know who he's going to throw to, but they said early in practice, they said that this guy was looking good during fall and everything in preseason, and they just need to throw to the guy. Let's go, Brandon Ayuk.
Some of the biggest disappointments of the season have been wide receivers this year, but right now for me, the guys I think about all the time are how high did you take George Kittle and Kyle Pitts? It's really sad at the moment. None of these guys are in the top 10 right now. David Njoku's inside the top 10. Gerald Everett's inside the top 10. Taysom Hill is inside the top 10 as a tight end eligible. Will Dissly is around that, and I'll talk about him later. Hayden Hurst is coming up the side. But if you took Kyle Pitts high in one of your drafts, he's position ranked 25 at tight end, even worse in a top 200 overall. The only guys doing worse are maybe like Dawson Knox right now. They've been absolutely abysmal. George Kittle's barely cracking the top 40. Even when he is healthy, he's been putting up maybe about 4 points at a time. Look for your tight ends elsewhere. You only got Andrews and Kelsey. Anybody else, you got to do a little bit more research on.
Patriots at Browns.
I foolishly dropped Jacoby Myers, what appeared to be 2 weeks too early due to an injury, and then he comes back and has yet another great game. He looks to be the number 1 wide receiver in New England, whatever that means. Doesn't even matter what quarterback's throwing to him. He looks really, really good. I think he's a solid flex play this week. Play Jacoby Myers.
Okay, so all you guys out there, maybe you drafted Trey Lance or Tua Tagovailoa or somebody that got injured, Mac Jones, and you've been a little weak at the quarterback position. Maybe you've been filling in with Jimmy Garoppolo or something like that. Now is your chance. Desean Watson rejoined the Browns office on Monday. He's now eligible to attend meetings, work out the team facility. He can put some game plans together. Now, he can't practice until around November 14th. And, he's going to be late in the season, around week 13 for some people, probably after the 11-game suspension and the bye. But Desean Watson is somebody on the waiver wire right now that if you need that push over the hump for your playoffs, rest your team solid, but your weak at QB, you need to go roster him now. Look for Desean Watson on your redraft waiver wires, ASAP.
So you're telling me I shouldn't be a dick, and I should add Desean Watson onto my fantasy team. Is that correct, Ryan?
That is correct.
Jets at Packers.
Ladies and gentlemen, Breece Hall has shown up and is now going to be the Breece Hall show for those with patience and perseverance. If you drafted Breece Hall, it's going to pay off. He clearly is going to be the RB1 in New York. The Jets are not the team that's going to get steamrolled going forward. The offense looks like it's piecing itself together pretty nicely, and Breece Hall is a huge missing piece for that New York running game. You got Breece Hall. You plug and play, and I think he's an RB2 going forward for the rest of the season.
For all of the struggles that Green Bay's gone through, one of the most interesting things going on this year is the down-the-middle split time between A.J. Dillon and Aaron Jones in the running game. They're both averaging maybe about 15 carries a game, so you can't depend on either one. But this last game, they only ran the ball maybe 20 times total, and a lot of receiving targets went out to Aaron Jones, as usual. I would actually look for Romeo Doubs to be one of the better flex or DFS plays this week. Also, Allen Lazard, if he's been on your bench, he is clearly Rodgers' favorite target when available. And against the Jets, their defense hasn't been great, but their offense has been decent, so you might see a high-scoring game here for once from the Packers.
Jaguars at Colts.
This one's my game of the week, and I'm looking squarely at Travis Etienne. The Jags looked horrible last week against the Houston's team that we should have beat, but the silver lining to it, in my eyes, was Travis Etienne. He looked shifty, he looked smart, he looked fast. Yes, he had kind of a boneheaded drop that, fortunate enough, was an incomplete pass. But Trevor Lawrence was clearly looking at Etien early and often, especially in the red zone when he couldn't do anything besides throw a pick. Come on, T-Law, you're better than that. This is the game. Travis Etien averaging 4.8 yards per carry. That's almost a first down every 2 times this guy's touching the ball. I think it's only a matter of time. James Robinson is a very solid running back. I'm not saying don't play him, but Etien was drafted in the first round for a reason. James Robinson was undrafted. Etien is going to be the guy. This might be the game that does it.
This is a game I probably would not bet on in Vegas. This is just one of those situations where, the Colts have our number in certain areas. The Jags have their number in certain areas. Right now, Jonathan Taylor is probably not going to play this week. He was seen just practicing on the sideline. Nyheim Hines is still going through that concussion protocol. In terms of fantasy purposes, Dion Jackson is probably somebody you want to look at right now. If Jonathan Taylor can't go, Nyheim Hines can't go. This guy just had 13 attempts for 62 yards in that last game. He looks pretty solid cutting through the middle. Look for him on the waiver wire as a deep pickup.
Vikings at Dolphins.
I believe KJ Osborne is an Adam Thielen injury away from being a thing. I really do. I think Osborne's fast. He's got good hands. It's Kirk Cousins, and we know Cousins is just going to throw the ball at least, 30 times a game. That's a given. Even with Dalvin Cook and Alexander Madison behind him. And Minnesota, offensively speaking, has done very well, the offense has essentially, in my eyes, sputtered, not named Justin Jefferson, who looked amazing last week. Jack's going to draft him. But KJ Osborne, if he's sitting on the waiver wire, I've got a good feeling about him. And again, he's just an Adam Thielen injury away from being relevant.
This is a pretty good time to pick up the Minnesota defense and stream them. Skylar Thompson came in for Teddy Bridgewater after his injury against the Jets, and he really wasn't able to get too much going. He only got 166 yards through the air, nothing on the ground. He threw a pick, and he had a fumble. And right now, I'm saying you could probably lower the stock for Tyreek Hill, Jalen Waddle, and that's just not a lot of yards to go around. I would say at this point, Dolphins, you want to stay away from altogether.
Bengals at Saints.
Jacksonville's own Hayden Hurst is becoming the tight end we've all been waiting for. This is a guy me and Ryan have talked about for the last few years. I laughed when I read this quote-unquote journalist's take on Hayden Hurst, calling him, and I quote, a bust for the last 3 years. I go, clearly, sir, you have not done your research. He was never thrown to. That's the best thing about any type of sport. If you're not getting thrown the ball or not hitting the ball or catching the ball or even playing in a game, how are you labeled a bust? You were never given a chance. Hayden Hurst is given that chance. It is very clear now that Joe Burrow and him have some sort of connection. They're gelling well. And I believe there's a few injuries. Again, I think T. Higgins might be out again this week, they're saying. So I think Hayden Hurst is a strong tight end, even a flex.
Taysom Hill is becoming the ultimate flex one. He's kind of that gadget player like Cordero Patterson was for a while, played a lot of special teams. Taysom Hill is a little bit of a different situation, sometimes fills in for QB, but he is eligible at tight end in Yahoo and ESPN. This last game, he had over 112 yards, some 40-yard bonuses. They were using him in the rushing game a lot, had a passing TD, 37 points in our half PPR league. You might want to think about looking at him on the waiver wire, trading for him. He's going to be, like I said, the ultimate gadget player, but right now he's averaging about 15 points per week.
Ravens at Giants.
You hear that sound? School is in session. Gus the Bus Edwards is almost back. This is another one of our favorites here at Fantasy R&R. J.K. Dobbins is coming back from an injury as well, so it's going to be interesting to see how this backfield shakes out. But, man, I have been a huge fan of Gus Edwards. I picked him up. I'm stashing the guy anywhere I can. Look at Gus Edwards. He should be wildly available, I would like to think. And they're saying that he potentially could even be practicing this week.
Going into week 6, the only Giants receiver that has broken 170 yards is a guy named Richie James. He's done it on 22 targets. There's only, I think, maybe 3 receiving TDs for fantasy players on the Giants this season. I know that's a crazy stat to hear, but it's absolutely true. Right now, Daniel Jones is doing more with his feet than his arms. Saquon Barkley is the only person you can trust on the Giants to start week to week. Forget about Darius Slayton. Forget about Sterling Shepard. Kenny Galladay's been non-existent. Kadarius Toney's been hurt and non-existent. So at this point, you can set and forget Saquon. It's probably one of the best leagues running backs right now, but anybody else on the Giants, I have no idea how this team is 4-1. Don't start them in fantasy.
Buccaneers at Steelers.
Okay, I'm calling it now. Deontay Johnson, this is his game, finally. I mean, we are seeing Chase Claypool essentially being phased out of this offense here. We've said it again, another one. Kenny Pickett is the guy. 1 month in, we're looking at him starting. You got to let this evolve a little bit, let these guys mesh, but Deontay Johnson was targeted quite early and quite frequently down the field. So I liked what I saw last week. This is his game. Deontay Johnson is finally worth the price tag. But in my opinion, I thought he was a steal. And I think people were worried, of course, about the quarterback situation. I think that's all playing out. Start Deontay Johnson this week.
I'm going to play a little bit of point-counterpoint here. I think that's absolutely false. I would not start him anywhere. I probably wouldn't even run him in a DFS, even if he had a low salary. They can't get anything going on offense, honestly. Pickett has not looked good. He's thrown a ton of picks. He does get the ball off a little bit quicker than Trubisky, and he can take the hit, but honestly, it's been a slow roll to get him integrated in the NFL, and I think it's going to take a while before we see anything good out of him. With Pat Freiermuth a little banged up, the offense is going to be even a little bit weaker on the offensive line. Najee Harris can't get any penetration. He has not had a rushing game over 74 yards. He's only got 1 TD on the ground. If they can't get the rushing game going, they're not going to have much hope for Pitts and the wide receivers. I think Tampa Bay is going to eat this team alive, and it's going to be a little embarrassing, and you're going to see some people potentially ask to flip back to Trubisky while Pickett sits for a while.
Panthers at Rams.
Cam Akers, stop making me look like an idiot. Going against Carolina's very, very porous defense. They have a poor offense. That defense is going to continuously come back to play on the field, and they're going to be worn out by the fourth quarter, which I believe the Rams will just be, at least 30 points on them at that point. This is Cam Akers' game. If he has a game, great. If he doesn't have a game, he's going to be firmly entrenched on my bench no matter what. He has been a huge disappointment this year for me, as has, in my opinion, the Rams offense compared to what they were doing last year. I mean, I don't really know what's going on. Not named Cooper Kupp, but Allen Robinson has been a complete waste and a decoy. Matt Stafford doesn't look as good as he was last year, and this run game is just as much of a mess as it is for half the teams in the league. Cam Akers, stop making me look like an idiot. Do something this week. I'm poking you with the stick, dude, and you're dead. Come on.
For Cooper Kupp fans, there's a little bit of a snag in the road here. I traded Jonathan Taylor for him in a keeper league, so I really need some help at the wide receiver position, and I thought maybe Jonathan Taylor could potentially turn into that David Johnson 2.0. But unfortunately, Kupp did not practice today or yesterday due to a foot injury. We're going to see what happens going forward, but it looks like we could actually miss a guaranteed 20-point week out of this guy as soon as I trade for him. Very unfortunate, but keep your eye on that because going forward, maybe Allen Robinson is a DFS play for the weekend.
Cardinals at Seahawks.
Ladies and gentlemen, Rondale Moore did something. I added him. I'm not playing the guy. They used him in the slot, and he looked like Christian Kirk of old. How ironic. I think Rondale Moore could be a very strong play this week going forward once DeAndre Hopkins come back. Maybe, maybe not. I don't know. If they keep him in the slot and you got Hopkins and Hollywood Brown, I mean, that's 3 nice wide receivers there for Kyler Murray to actually do something. I'm nudging you silently while saying, hey, do something for my damn team, Kyler Murray. Rondale Moore play him this week going forward? Not sure. But last week was very, very impressive.
Will Dissly is now on the radar again. He got injured last year, but he was looking good the year before that. Very strong tight end in the blocking and catching game. Doesn't get a ton of volume because he doesn't have amazing speed or athletic jumping ability or anything like that. But on the season now, 15 targets, 14 receptions, 137 yards. He's got 3 TDs. He is right around the top 10 of the tight end position, so he's probably on your waiver wire. Only 11.5% rostered in ESPN. This is a great time to pick him up if you've been struggling with guys like Kittle and Pitts and you need somebody to run with for the rest of the year.
Bills at Chiefs.
Gabe Davis did Gabe Davis things last week, and I want to see it again right off the bat. 98-yard reception. Josh Allen is the man. You already know that because you're one of the 34 people who continue to listen to us, because we've been preaching that. Repeat performance from Gabe Davis, I'd say so. This is going to be a shootout. This is going to be a fantastic game. I can't wait to watch it, but I think Gabe Davis is going to end up going forward. I think it's a safe play. If not wide receiver, definitely flex going forward for the rest of the season.
Big story here is there's been a lot of talk about the Bills potentially trading for star running back Christian McCaffrey. It looks like Carolina's possibly not going to have anything that they can gain from that trade from the Bills specifically, but if it does happen, it would change a lot of things about the way the Bills run their offense, because they are not run heavy right now, and Christian McCaffrey is very powerful in the receiving game as well. Keep your eye on that news. I think it bodes well for McCaffrey owners. I think it kind of hurts some of the Buffalo Bills receivers just a bit. But in that high-powered offense, you'd have to imagine that everyone's still going to get their share, and they're probably going to the Super Bowl.
Cowboys at Eagles.
I hate you, Miles Sanders.
This is actually going to be my game of the week, this Cowboys-Eagles matchup. Jalen Hurts has got to prove something a little bit more in the air for me personally. I love him being on my team, gets a lot of rushing yards, a lot of rushing TDs, but the Eagles have to be more than that. Yeah, most Super Bowl teams have traditionally been very run-heavy, run-effective offenses, but they're looking a little one-dimensional to me. I got to see a little bit more of that deep ball to A.J. Brown that we saw earlier in the season. And Cooper Rush, despite this last game, he's kind of been on fire filling in for Dak Prescott for the Cowboys. This is a hard divisional matchup. They are in Philly, so I think that's going to help out a bit, but don't be surprised if this one does not hit the over on the over-under. I mean, I'd probably even give it maybe just like 36 or something like that. I don't think it's going to be a very high-scoring game, and I'm hoping to see the Eagles take it and also go to the Super Bowl against the Bills.
Broncos at Chargers.
If Keenan Allen sits, Joshua Palmer will eventually have to do something, right? This is back-to-back weeks with kind of lackluster production from what I believe is a pretty talented receiver in Joshua Palmer. Not giving up on him. If, again, Keenan Allen does sit again this week, I believe Josh Palmer is that flex play that eventually is going to pan out. Don't give up on Josh Palmer just yet.
I think the real question for this game is, do you play Melvin Gordon or do you play Mike Boone? That loss of Javonte Williams, kind of strange. Javonte Williams looked decent, didn't look amazing when he started the season, but he looked like he was definitely going to be a top 10 RB. I'd say in this situation, I really like Mike Boone a little bit more. He just looks to be a little bit more athletic. Melvin Gordon fumbles a lot. He's getting older. He couldn't put together 4 yards a carry in this last game, Indianapolis, but they're both being effective in the receiving game. Right now, I think Mike Boone is a fine stash at only 32.5% rostered in ESPN leagues. You might want to jump on him while you can. And that's going to do it for our Week 5 podcast. Once again, this was Fantasy R&R with Rob and Ryan. We will see you next time.